Flirting with Death by Raven13. Chapter 1. I'm Alive. December 19th, 2014. The entirety of my body was pain. Each shallow breath I took sent a sharp jolt through my chest. None of my limbs would respond. What happened? I remembered walking back from school. I remembered bone-crushing pain as something large collided with my body and sent me flying through the air. Ugh, don't tell me I was hit by a truck. What a horrible way to start Christmas break. Silent snowflakes drifted down onto my face as dark tendrils curled at the edges of my vision. I was dying. I wondered if this was how Rosinante felt in his final moments. I let my eyes close. Suddenly, I felt warm. Oh crap, was I going to hell? I blinked, squinting at the sun overhead. I guess I wasn't dead? My body was no longer racked with insurmountable agony. I took stock of my senses. The ground was hard and uneven beneath my hands, and it felt like stone. There were brick buildings on either side of me. The air was briny with a hint of smoke, and I could hear the sound of metal clanging nearby. "Hey kid, are you all right?" a pleasant tenor voice rang out. I sat up slowly, noting that my body was significantly shorter than it had been. I was obviously in a younger body, I'd guess around 9. I was clothed in a simple green dress with yellow tights and black Mary Jane-style shoes, rather than the winter attire I had on moments before. I looked toward the voice and had to do a double take. A clean-shaven man had appeared from a nearby alley, wearing a perfect recreation of a one-piece Marine uniform. He even carried a rifle replica. Was there an anime convention nearby or something? I'm not sure. Aw man, I even sounded like an elementary school kid. "Let's get you off the street. It's not safe here." He was interrupted by a blade that plunged through his chest. I screamed. Reaching for my phone to dial 911, my heart rate spiked further when I realized that my phone wasn't there. The blade was removed and the soldier fell to the ground in a pool of his own blood. Stepping over his body was a generic vagabond-looking guy, like a cliché pirate henchman. "Well, aren't you a pretty little thing? Bet some'd pay a lot of berry for you." I was fully freaking out by that point, so I did what any rational person would do. I fainted. Tight ropes dug into my wrists and ankles, and a rough fabric cut into the corners of my mouth as I faded back into consciousness. I was laying on a cold concrete floor in a dimly lit building. There were a few other women and children in here with me, similarly bound. I heard swords clashing and rifles firing outside. This was definitely not my hometown. I ran through the last hour in my head. I was hit by a truck, my vision faded, and suddenly I was in a place heavily reminiscent of my favorite anime. I saw a Marine and a pirate, heard the word berry, and I was captured by said pirate. Holy crap, did I just get isekai'd? I think I'm actually in One Piece. OMG, I'm actually in One Piece! Like I said, it was my favorite anime. I had devoured every detail of the pre-time skip arc several times, though I could never bring myself to watch post-time skip. I was worried that the characters I knew and loved so much would be too different after 2 years. Not to mention, Ace's death left me broken and devastated. Mentally, I was unable to move past it. Though I did read Law's entire wiki page because Law. Need I say more? Now, for the matter at hand. Knowing the way this world worked, I would probably be sold into slavery. My only reasonable option was to try to escape before that happened. I wriggled around, looking for a rock or something I could use to hack through the ropes. I stilled as the sound of fighting grew closer. There was a loud crash, then it was quiet. The wooden door suddenly splintered apart, and my jaw dropped in utter disbelief. Garp? There he stood in an unsullied white suit, seemingly larger than life. How he managed to not get a single scuff on him while fighting was beyond my comprehension. He called over his shoulder, "I found the missing civilians." He scanned the room, moving off to one side as a few of his men rushed into the building, untying and getting treatment for all of us. As soon as my bonds were removed, I ran over to Garp, since he was, technically, the only person I knew here. I stared up at him for several minutes. He was far more intimidating up close. Garp cleared his throat. "Did you need something, little girl?" I shook my head dumbly, eyes wide. He frowned slightly. "Do you need help finding your family?" My family? I thought of my mom, smiling and singing as she cooked my favorite meal, eggplant parmesan. I thought of my twin brother, mussing up my golden hair with a shit-eating grin after beating me in Mario Kart for the umpteenth time. Tears flowed freely from my emerald eyes. I don't have any family," I finally choked out through my sobs. Garp knelt down and placed a hand on my head. "Hey, I'm sure we can find someone here who will take you in." He started walking over to one of his subordinates, and I panicked. I didn't want to stay in this town. He was the only familiar thing here. I latched onto his leg like an octopus, yelling, "No, Gramps, don't leave me here!" I wouldn't allow him to abandon me. He tried half-heartedly to shake me off his leg, but I just clutched it tighter. "I'm not letting go until you agree to take me with you," I proclaimed loudly. He stopped shaking his leg and threw his head back. "Bwahaha! Fine, little lady. I've got some grandsons around your age. You can live with them. I think you'd get along great." My heart leapt. That meant that Ace and Luffy were still on Dawn Island. And Sabo. I had a chance to prevent Sabo's death. I beamed up at Garp with the biggest grin I could muster. "Thanks, Gramps," I said, and it finally released his leg. For the rest of the day, I shadowed him, refusing to let him out of my sight, and eventually it was time to set sail. I swear I had literal stars in my eyes as I gazed out across the wide expanse of ocean beyond the railing. So cool! I wandered aimlessly around the massive ship and overheard some of the crew mention the Goa Kingdom. Excitement buzzed in my chest. I was actually going to meet the 3 wannabe pirates. I knew Luffy would accept me straight away, but I needed to be strong to earn Ace's respect. The next morning, when the crew gathered to perform their routine exercises, I decided to join in. I could sense Garp's hope in me as he watched me train with his men. I mentally snickered. He's going to be so disappointed when I become a pirate, too.